You may recall that I wrote to Passenger a letter saying, look, the space is dead. But we, the people not in politics, can't get in because of the barriers erected by APC and PDP. So I invited him, actually met him and said, you got to do something. If at your age of 80, there's one thing left to be done, that's to assist, create a third force. So that was part of what energized me, and we got going. So what he has said, some say yes, in his own time he wanted to be third-term president and all that, but I don't think that's important. What's important is to look at the state of the country, one. Two, whether or not APC and PDP are doing well, which they are not. And then to accept that a lot of what he says makes sense. So I endorse it completely.
Now let's take a look at the composition of the NIM itself. What you're saying that your group is not a political group and it's not aspiring to public office. Is that it?
Mm-mm. We're a political movement. And our first task is to mobilize the national anger. And we've done that. We've got a lot of groups within us. We've got Take Nigeria Back, we've got Red Card Movement, we've got Charlie Boys Group, Mumu Don't Do, all sorts of groups. Now the next thing is to be able to expand it and bring in particularly the youths and students. We're looking at about 10 to 12 million members. Then we do massive voter education. You must have your voter's card, is the campaign. Some of us have interest in politics. So at a certain point, for instance, Donald Duke has an active interest in presidential politics.
Yes, which he has highlighted.
So when he does go, it'll be the movement separating from the political party. That's it.
All right. Now, you've said your own position on the candidature of the incumbent President Buhari towards the 2019 elections. Now, based on your group's position, are they also in sync with your ideas?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, the only difference we have in the passenger's position is that President Buhari may decide to run. What's important is to hold the voting population. So it becomes a competition of market forces. Our aim is to make sure both the APC and the PDP have no place in national politics in 2019.
All right. Now, some governors, lawmakers and political leaders are also spearheading a new party to oust the APC come 2019. What's your position on this? We're seeing the same set of creed, the same set of individuals. So it's like them going to form another party, but it's the same set of people.
No, we won't allow that. We're not going to allow that.
How are you going to stop them?
Because we're going to campaign for the conscience of Nigerians. That's the power we have. That's the power that has not been utilized by Nigerians. If we campaign for the soul of Nigerians and they join, and the rate at which we are getting membership signing on suggests to me we're going to be very big. We will defeat these governors and politicians. I have no doubt about it. We will shape 2019.
Now, you're very optimistic towards Nigerians aspiring to...
Because they're very angry.
Okay.
Don't you know that? They're very angry. Are you not angry? Are you not angry? Why are you asking me this kind of question?
All right. Now.
I'm very angry. And
okay.
what I'm saying here, I'm sure if you could get all Nigerians to say the same thing, they will say, Olisa Agbakoba, what you're saying is correct. Look at all the killings in Benue. Not a word from the government. No petrol, unemployment, bad roads, everywhere. The country has failed. So it needs to be rescued.
All right. Now, critics have also argued on the trend of not being proactive, with the government and making these decisive decisions in that regard. What's your take?
How do you mean? Who's not being proactive?
The government itself, all the myriad of challenges you've just highlighted.
That's what I just said. That's why Passenger said they failed. That's absolutely what is making us livid. In any sphere of activity, in any sector, the government has no clue. So what do? If you do not do anything about it, then very likely either the PDP or the APC will take power in 2019 for another 8 years. And then it keeps recurring like a decimal. So it's time to confront it. And by the way, what do we lose? Nothing. It's better to do something and lose than to stay and be grumbling in your bedroom.
All right.
So we've got nothing to lose.
Now, what's your group's position? Now, you've lauded President or former President Obasanjo's stance on Mr. Buhari's prospects of being running for office in 2019. Now, what do you make of his itemized critique?
He's correct. He's correct. First, there's a cabal that has surrounded the president. Even the president's wife, Aisha, tweets about it. So, and that's what led the president to say she should be in the other room. So, what he's saying, everybody knows it. All that, in fact, let me be honest with you, Obasanjo did not say anything new. What he did was to articulate what we all know in a specific, clearly stated position. There's nothing in the letter that it was not known to Nigerians.
Now, irrespective of that, Pundits have also argued that the person of former President Obasanjo himself is not devoid of controversies during his election.
Talk about the message. Leave the messenger.
All right.
That's my answer to that.
Oh.
Talk about the message. The message is, are Nigerians happy? Forget that about Obasanjo saying it. So if you ask Nigerians, are you happy? The answer will be a resounding no. The fact that Obasanjo was the one to articulate it, for me, is unimportant.
All right. Now, you've also mentioned the fact that at one point, your group is ready to support credible candidates.
Absolutely.
Now, my question to you is that what yardstick are you using to measure those who are credible that will run for office in that regard?
Experienced, skilled, young people. If you are 80, you're not credible. Go and look after your grandchildren. You've got to have the energy. You've got to have it. And we know who they are. They're everywhere. The Patutomis, the Donald Dukes, they're everywhere. And when it comes to that time, it'll be clear if this new party that is forming messes up and becomes another revamped PDP or APC, they won't get our support. They won't get our support. We are the guys who will work very hard. And that's a big task. But I promise you, we intend to work extremely very hard to be able to shape how votes will go. So people who start a new party and fill it with the old rogues ain't going nowhere. They ain't going nowhere.
Now, I like your take on PDP's claim that it has been vindicated on Dr. Obasanjo's stance on President Buhari. What do you make of that development?
PDP is dead. PDP is trying to ride the bandwagon to say we don't need a third force. Now that Obasanjo has discredited the APC, then we are the guys who are the Messiah. They are not the Messiah. They're not the Messiah. No.
So how do you envisage Nigeria's response, towards your emergence in this regard?
Well, so far, it's been very good. And I think the response will be how hard we work. So the buck is on our table to work hard to get Nigerians to say, these are the right guys. But as I said, the incompetence of this government has made it easy for us to engage Nigerians because we're tapping into the national anger.
All right.
And that national anger is what we intend to ride through to 2019.
Now, I'd like you to also take a look at what's happening in some of the issues we're seeing also in the judiciary as well. Now, the EFCC has reported 3 judges to the NJC. Do you see anything positive coming out of that in view of the fact that there's been allegations of more or less protecting judges, especially when they're glaring evidence to point to their culpability, or as it were, towards these crimes that they're being accused of?
No, I will speak generally, and not specifically. I was on the NJC for 4 years, so I know. I think the NJC needs and needed at that time to be more proactive. It was as a result of NJC's conservative position that the EFCC and DSS conducted those raids. So I'm hoping that now that the NJC has sort of regained its authority to discipline judges, hence EFCC wrote to them, that they will deal with those 3 cases swiftly and decisively, one way or the other. The NJC needs to regain the lost space and regain the popular perception is that the judiciary is rotten. The NJC needs to turn that around. It needs to change the narrative and make Nigerians say, yes, at last, here we have a judiciary that is accountable.
Yeah.
But at this point, the NJC is far from it.
Yeah. And there's always that public perception that the judiciary itself is a little bit slow on matters relating to not just public office holders, but even crime itself. You know, we're not moving as the pace at which. So, what do you make of that?
No. Well, I'm not the CJN, so maybe you should ask the CJN. But it's something as a lawyer of 40 years that I've consistently emphasized. We in the legal and judicial community will not get any traction or respect if it takes a case, say landlord-tenant, 5 years in the High Court. Nobody will have any confidence. So right now, the truth is, the confidence in us, both legal and judicial community, is very low. And that's a terrible shame.
Okay.
And I've been speaking to so many CJNs, you know, about this issue. Unfortunately, one just died. He, in my view, Justice Dahiru Muzdaba, was the most active. It was one who was really concerned about the need to speed up cases.
All right.
That's all it's all about. If you go to court, you get a decision as quickly as possible. That's the only way that the judiciary will get the confidence of Nigerians. Right now, it's not there.
Okay, what about your own contributions as former NBA regarding what you just highlighted?
Yeah. You see, the problem with the NBA is that we're just advisory. We don't have any statutory powers. So when I was NBA president, a lot of what I'm saying, I presented to different forums. Even on the NJC, I did make my presentations. But those presentations will have to be accepted. That's the problem.
Now, let's look at the situation whereby we'll go back to the NIM as a group. Do you think you offer a better alternative as a group in this regard?
There's no question about that. No question. I don't, without sounding, you know, pompous. How many of the guys how many ministers are better than me? So let's bring it down to that level. We've got first-class stars. If you're the coach of a football team and you have 30 guys to choose, you're going to put me on that team. You're going to put Patotomi on that team. You're going to put Donald Duke on that team. So what's happening is we've got the 3rd and 4th 11s populating both executive and legislative offices, and they have nothing in their heads, no clue. That's why things do not work. The petrol issue is a piece of cake to solve, piece of cake. But you got to know what to do. You've got to know what to do when there's scarcity. The forex problem. So there are many problems that don't really become problems. But if you don't know what to do, then it becomes a problem.
All right. Now, the government has scored itself high on corruption, but it blames the judiciary itself on not speeding up the process, just like you've highlighted in that regard. And the question is, what is the way out there? Because there has to be a synergy between, you know, we're not seeing much convictions, there's been prosecutions, so...
There's all kinds of challenges, and it goes back to what I've just been saying, that over the last 30, 40 years, the worst guys get into government. The most talented guys don't get in, whether it's judiciary, executive, legislative. So you have poor quality people. Poor quality people will give you poor results. So on the executive side, I disagree that the anti-corruption program has been as effective as claimed. It hasn't, because the EFCC is an organization that isn't working. It's overloaded. If I was the Attorney General of the Federation, I would unbundle the EFCC into 3 organizations, because the main function of the EFCC is to investigate. The prosecutorial power of the EFCC ought to go to another agency. So when all this is modeled together, it just makes one humongous, inefficient organization. And of course, I don't take the blame from the judiciary where cases don't get heard or mentioned or concluded. So all around is a mess of pottage.
Yeah. And let's look at the National Assembly itself. Over time, we've seen the way it's been reacting to national issues. It's been more of a self-serving, you can't help but look at it that way, a self-serving group. How would you assess them?
Absolutely, you're right. How many of them got there because they were qualified? Half the National Assembly are made up of people who can't even be local government chairmen, to say nothing about going all the way to the National Assembly. All they've done is getting there by patronage or money. That's the problem. So the results and the quality of work will not be high.
So in essence, we're stuck with the...
We have an absolutely rotten government, absolutely third-rate government. That's the problem. And the only way you can do is to fix it, to get the best guys, to get young, fresh people who understand the modern way of running things. And those are not the guys you see in the National Assembly or in the executive. Without calling names, how many ministers qualified to be minister? I don't want to go into the detail of that, but how many? There's some you don't even remember their names. They've been there for 3 years. So that guy's a minister? Really? When did he get there? How did he get there? He's there.